My name is Laurence Ales. I'm Senior Associate Dean of Education at the Tepper School of Business, and I'm also a Professor of Economics here at the Tepper School of Business. We've recently celebrated our 75th anniversary, so this is an apt question to ask on what is next. We pride ourselves to be the home of management science. This is like by now, the old idea that we could approach management of organization from a scientific standpoint, as opposed to more of a instinctive or relying, let's say, on history. What this means in practice is our vast majority of classes are based on foundational theory. That's something that is front and center. Now, this approach has served us well, and what will it look like in the next 75 years? We have recently started, as of this year, an important initiative. We call it the Collaborative AI. And the idea is simple. Yes, it relies on AI, but what we are trying to do is combine two approaches at teaching management science. One is the traditional case study approach. We read an event that has occurred in the past, and when we discuss it. And the other one is the fundamental theories that are behind these events. Now, these two approaches have been somewhat separate. The case study tends to be more of a static, backward-looking, and the interaction only occurs in the class. What we try to do with collaborative AI is bring AI into the mix and create dynamic cases that are leveraging fundamental theories, so taking the best of both worlds, solid foundation and the interactive live nature that emerges out of case studies. One of the key sentences we strongly believe in is that we are not data-driven, we are human-driven. This is having data-informed, but human-driven ultimately. This is our heritage. We bring this into the classes by bringing in the three pillars of our education, which are operational research, operational behavioral theory, and economics. In training the leader of the future, we base on these three questions, but ultimately we emphasize that yes, data is everywhere. Data is going to be even more important going forward, but at the end, the human is in the middle. So in all of these three classes, we make sure that the student realize that ultimately decision-making has an important human component. I think intuition is an unconscious structure that people have in their own head, right? So I want to make, I'll make 2 points. The first is the reliance on theory. And I'll give an example on my own classes because those are the ones I know the best, but this is, steeped in all of our curriculum. In the class I teach, which is a macroeconomic class, we talk about from tariffs to inflation to monetary policy. And, once students go through it, they realize that data has limits. Data is created by humans. This is very different than other sciences. If I measure the distance between the Earth and the Sun, neither the Earth or the Sun care about what I'm doing. If I'm having a surveys of expectations about future policy, the human is in the middle. Okay, so now what does it mean is that now, although there is a column of data, students should have, let's say, an intuition on what might be behind the source of this data. The other aspect that is also very clear is that in many instances, we don't have as much data as we would like to. An alum once told me, when we were talking about curriculum in general, is that the higher you go in an organization, the less data you have. What this means is that now this human-driven decision-making cannot rely and say, like, look, I'm just going to run that statistic, I'm going to press that button and get the answer, right? So it's going to rely more and more on what you had brought, which is intuition. Now, Intuition here, I do not want to say it's like, oh, just a gut feeling. What we train students, what I said earlier on, is with this fundamental theory. So is there a simple representation of a problem in my head that can help me with that decision making? This is something that appears everywhere in the courses, and it's something that we rely more and more. Eventually, students unconsciously are able to do that. One thing that is clear is how quickly industries change their demand and how quickly students might move from an area to another one. This is something that we track very closely. We are extremely proud of our Master Career Center. We think it's one of the best, if not the best out there. The way in which it functions is being very close to the frontier. First, a lot of the master career coaches are, former Tepper alums, but all of them are former industry leaders. What does this mean? It means that they can be very close and cognizant on what are the market trends. So this is an important component in making sure that students are being channeled, are advised, and hopefully pushed to success in whatever career they are searching for. We have, both over time, but also different formats. We have a variety of MBA programs, and I could also expand to master's program. For example, even in our MBA program, our part-time MBA, they tend to be slightly older. They are employed, and they might be considering a career switch. Our MBAs, more traditionally, are thinking about perhaps also a career switch, but there might be a more of an early stage of their overall trajectory. So how do we tailor those? Now, the matching between what I mentioned with our career center is crucial in finding right and understanding that student. So having former students is extremely valuable because they know this. Another aspect that I would like to bring up is in preparing students to excel, besides the curricular and the career center, we have a leadership center, the Accelerate Leadership Center. And this is a co-curricular entity that helps students and trains them in leadership skill. Now, that is where it requires a lot of tailoring and lots of one-on-one meetings occur, making sure that we get the students where they are at and move them to where they ought to be or where they would like to be by the time they graduate. So the tailoring, lots of one-on-one, this is exactly what we spend a lot of time and effort on. No, interdisciplinary is like, in education is a buzzword. I'd like to say that, and we have that approach too, but I'm gonna say that we live by it. I'll give you an idea. At the Tepper School, we do not have departments. So there is no economics department or finance department. It's all one big happy family. Now, what does it mean? It means that even at the time of hiring or promotion of professor, there is at that stage, interdisciplinary approach. So yes, we do a lot of it in the classes, but this is everywhere. And it goes back, I don't want to have a history of the Tepper School, but goes back to literally our foundation. In practice, why is interdisciplinary approach important and looking forward even more important? The important part, it's almost self-evident. Having, we are leaders of the future, need to solve problems. Having multiple perspectives on how to solve problems, those fundamental theories I mentioned earlier, is an incredible asset. It's literally a toolbox. Now you have one more tool in your toolbox. I'm going to make the case that it's becoming even more important. Collaborating with AI ultimately is collaborating with an individual that is trained in a different discipline. Now, it happens that they might be trained in all disciplines. So the interaction between humans and AI is going to look more and more like an interaction between two individuals in different disciplines. So being able to think interdisciplinary will also help students interact with the AI. This is where we enter the frontier of educational progress, but this is what I'm really excited about coming our way. Our alumni network is extremely involved, and it's one of our biggest assets. Last weekend, we had a reunion, and we also had the opportunity to bring alums and admitted students together. And we had a testimonial from an alum, I think it was of 2014, and he was talking a lot on how the alumni network was instrumental, not only in his career, but also in his personal development over time. If you think about somebody graduating in 2014, in between, we have the pandemic, we have a lot of things. Lots of anecdote on how the class was close and how other students were helping out. So yes, our alumni network is fundamental. I want to make the case that it's more than a LinkedIn handshake. The class size, the shared experiences make this group of students who will go through our program a really tight-knit group. It's not uncommon to have in alumni reunion all of the classes, even of different years, comment on how they had the same professor. Right? Our scale is small, which means that we can have, that's not good or bad, but if you were an MBA student between 2015 and 2023, you had me as a professor. So now, what does it mean? You can bond whether it was good or bad, and that creates an additional common background. So alumni network is far-reaching. We have presence in a variety of countries. It's instrumental for students. They're willing, but importantly, it's a really tight-knit community. This is happening in a couple of ways, which is first, how do I prepare students? How do I coach them in a world where AI is dominant? And we talked a little bit about that earlier on in terms of how it shows up in the curriculum. There is another aspect that we are really excited on, how we are bringing AI as a supplemental tool to our own students. Take the Accelerate Leadership Center. Now, there is a lot of high contact interaction between our coaches and students, but at some stage at night, they're not available anymore. So if somebody needs and it requires coaching in the middle of the night, how can they do that? Well, we are launching for all students an AI leadership coach that will be able to supplement students when need be. On the career side, we are launching a coach, for example, to help presentation. Now, imagine I was doing this type of discussion in front of the AI coach. He will probably give back as feedback, say like, good that you're presenting, but maybe stop moving your hands, or whatever advice they might give. Again, this is like we are able to supplement our high-touch approach with what AI does best, which is availability and tailoring.